Looking around Tennessee's football schedule now, seeing how everybody did. Rough week for the teams on Tennessee's non-conference schedule overall. Pittsburgh beating Syracuse 30-13. Again, Syracuse, the quarterback injury has really killed their season. Chattanooga taking down ETSU 42-38. That was a great game. I didn't get to watch much of it, but apparently there was a really, really cool fake field goal in that game that Chattanooga ran. Liberty taking down New Mexico State 30-27. I believe that was a Tuesday game. But there was one Tennessee opponent in the non-conference that won, and it's part of a pretty major domino that fell in the group of five ranks, and that is UAB taking down Memphis 31-24 in Birmingham. UAB got the whole Jerry Neuheisel interim bump with Alex Mortensen, which, if that name rings a bell, he is the son of former ESPN analyst Chris Mortensen, and really incredible win for UAB because they got in a situation where Memphis was about to score late in that game, but they make a goal line stand, and you get out of there with the win, 31-24. And I don't know what kind of light that brings that program because they'll be in a coaching surge, as you might imagine. Maybe Alex Mortensen does well here in future games, but overall, if you look at the playoff picture, that is a pretty big domino to fall with Memphis going down. And there's another one, too, with Boise State taking down UNLV this weekend up in Boise. But, yeah, that was the one successful opponent Tennessee had this weekend in the non-conference, funnily enough.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's pretty crazy that UAB pulled off that upset because I thought that Memphis was a surefire college football playoff contender this year. And I mean, I didn't really think that they had strong enough competition to keep them out. But, I mean, losing to a team that has been playing as poorly as UAB has been, that's kind of rough. And I'm seeing right now on their schedule, they're going to have to turn around and play against South Florida this week. And South Florida is probably going to give them their run for their money. So, I mean, that's a great win for UAB. It definitely helps Tennessee look a little bit better, especially because there's just been so much chaos this year. And I feel like we say this all the time, just still trying to figure out like how the playoff picture is going to be and all this stuff. I mean, there's not really any clear cut teams like there's been in years past. So I think the committee has done what they planned on doing with the 12-team playoffs and adding more parity to college football. Although I wasn't necessarily a big fan of the idea at first and not a huge fan of the 16 team playoffs, but I will say it has opened the door for a lot more teams to get in here and compete.
Yeah, so USF really the last man standing in the group of five ranks. And we'll see. They got to go to Memphis later on in the year, so that should be a really fun group of five contest when it happens. But, yeah, big win for the Blazers this weekend. So moving into SEC games now on Tennessee's schedule. Georgia taking down Ole Miss 43-35. Georgia was down for a lot of that game. Kind of a shootout for a while. Ole Miss led 35-26, believe late in the third quarter, and then Georgia scored the last 17 points of the game and won at 43-35. I cannot figure out Georgia's defense. They go from sucking to just elites in the snap of a finger. It makes no sense. It's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. And they'll still very much be in the college football playoff race now. I think the toughest of their SEC games are behind them, and we'll talk about that later. But and Ole Miss, obviously, no need to hit the panic button either. But significant win for Georgia at home, especially after having lost your first significant home game of the season to Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to gauge this Georgia team, man. I mean, because, of course, as we all know, Tennessee almost beat Georgia earlier in the year. And, I mean, it seems like a lot of the times, you know, they get down. Like, I think they were down to Auburn at one point or at points during the game. But somehow Georgia just always claws back and ends up finding a way to win. And I don't know how great of a team they are overall. But I will say, I mean, good teams find opportunity to win all the time, and even if it isn't a pretty game, Georgia's still winning these games. So it's gonna be curious to see how they end up playing for the rest of the season, because I would imagine they're going to be knocking on the door of going to the SEC championship. unless Texas A&M or someone goes in there as well. Like we still got some more to see, but yeah, I mean Georgia. I mean that's another good win for helping Tennessee's case out for sure. Especially because Ole Miss was looking like they were on fire throughout this season. So it's pretty good that Georgia won that game, even though I know a lot of Tennessee fans don't like rooting for Georgia.
Yeah. Not not good for the Vols by any means that the Georgia won that game, but you're going to have you're going to have a lot of stuff shape itself out in the college football playoff, and that game was obviously very important in doing so. Next game on the schedule, Florida beats Mississippi State 23-21. Tough loss for Mississippi State. We'll see if they can get into a bowl game of some kind. And they got to find their wins at home. That's what they got to do to try and get into the bowl game, whatever that may be. And they got some winnable games on the road as well, but did have a chance to win that game late, actually, 20-7, I think at one point. And then they just couldn't pull it off in the end. Interception thrown by Blake Shapen late in the game, and you ended up going down in that game. I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. Florida, it's funny that they are the third team in the last 5 years now to have defeated Mississippi State and fire their coach the very next day, joining Gus Malzahn and Auburn and Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M. So that's a very funny trend. But obviously the big story here is Billy Napier going down with the ship there in Gainesville.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was funny because there was starting to be rumors on Twitter and everything that Billy Napier was potentially going to get fired after the game. And then, you see Florida win and then you wonder what's going to happen. But I mean, I guess a win over Mississippi State wasn't enough for them to keep him around, which I'm a little disappointed in, to be honest. I liked Billy Napier being Florida's head coach. I was hoping he was going to get a lifetime contract. I was hoping that he was going to be there forever. Because I think that he's probably the worst head coach I've seen come through Florida, which is pretty crazy considering some of the talent that he's been able to pull together. But I'm seeing right now, I'm looking at the box score of the game. Florida won with Lagway throwing 2 interceptions and no touchdowns. And I was like, dang, 2 more touchdowns. Let me see his season stats. Well, for the year, he's got 9 touchdowns and 9 interceptions.
Ooh.
And this is a guy that everyone was saying was going to be a potential Heisman candidate. But me, as an Indianapolis Colts fan, seeing his similar big brother, Anthony Richardson, see how much he struggled and how much he's underperformed. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I saw this coming with DJ Lagway. And it's just interesting to see all that hype kind of go out the window here because I don't hear anybody talking about him much anymore, which also has got me curious about Lenore Sellers. I know Tennessee isn't playing him this season, but I think he's underperformed as well. But I have not really kept up with South Carolina as much. Okay, yeah.
They're all underperforming.
Yeah, 5 touchdowns and 2 interceptions for Lenore Sellers. So yeah, all the big name hitters, Lenore Sellers, DJ Lagway, Arch Manning. I mean, pretty much all of them are just not doing what people expected. So it's interesting.
Yeah, DJ Lagway, the potential was there, but you knew that it was going to be. You knew it was going to be a matter of whether or not you can string it together consistently, and you haven't seen it from him at all this season. So, but Billy Napier is gone. He somehow managed to last longer than Jim McElwain with an even worse record. Jim McElwain had 2 SEC championship appearances, and Will Muschamp at least had an 11-win season. Dan Mullen started his career at Florida 29-9, and then won 6 games his last year, and they fired him. Billy Napier had a losing record in 3.5 seasons, basically. So Yeah, Florida ends up doing what we all believed was inevitable last season. We weren't sure about it going into this season, and you said you gave yourself a pat on the back for that. Take you out on DJ Lagway. Time for me to pat myself on the back. I said before the season 2024 was Florida's version of what Tennessee had in 2019, where you have a horrible start to the season. You win enough games on the back end to surge, get to a bowl game, and make your fans feel at least decent about the direction the program is going in. And then you proceed to just flop the next season and you get the coach fired, except Billy Napier lasted even less time than Jeremy Pruitt did on the job at Tennessee. But that makes 3 teams now that on Tennessee's schedule that no longer have head coaches. So tough look for those guys down there. But Florida does get the win this week. Up next, Texas A&M taking down Arkansas 45-42. Aggies never trailed in that game. But Taylor Green had a very nice outing. Threw for 3 touchdowns, ran for an additional 2 touchdowns. No turnovers in this game for Arkansas either. And it hit me earlier today that Arkansas, they are getting to a point in the schedule where they're about to start seeing teams like Texas and Auburn and LSU who are good on the defensive end but don't have it on offense this year. So it kind of makes me wonder, like, can they pick off somebody here soon just because of that? Like, if they had a semblance of a defense, I would feel pretty good about them right now. They got to go out and get their guys, both as a defensive staff and then just in the portal this offseason, whoever that coach may be. But man, if they can find a way to keep that offense intact, they could be right back into somewhat of relevance in the SEC next season.
Yeah, and like Taylor Green, he's been kind of like an unsung hero for his team this entire season. I mean, there's not as many eyes around him as some of these other big name quarterbacks, but I mean, right now he's 3rd in the SEC in passing yards, and he's only 22 yards shy of surpassing Ty Simpson. And he's also got 2 more touchdown passes than Joey Aguilar, so he's sitting at 17 right now. And then it looks like he's dropped a little bit in rushing, but I know at one point he was number 4 in the conference, but now he's number 6. I mean, he's got 589 yards, 5 touchdowns. I mean, he's a pretty dynamic player, man. And I think it was funny that you mentioned before on it was probably the same week we were prepping for the Arkansas game, but it's just a weird thing how they've had all these tall, like athletic quarterbacks and everything come through there because I mean, you look at him on the field, and I had no clue until this year that Taylor Green was 6'6" because he doesn't really look like it on the field. But yeah, like him, and you brought up like Matt Jones and from the past. Just an interesting little thing that Arkansas's had going on here. But yeah, I mean, I assume if like as long as Taylor Green's still playing good, even if Arkansas does have a bad defense, I mean, you'd like to think that they can outscore at least one of these teams and potentially get an upset, which would also reflect good on Tennessee. And, after having 2 losses on the season, I think Tennessee is going to need to take every little small victory they can get because I'm not sure that this will be the only that Tennessee's going to cap out at 2 losses this season.
Yeah. So we'll see what Arkansas can do. But Texas A&M really looking like the best team in the league right now, certainly the best overall record. We'll see what happens down the stretch. Moving on down the schedule, Texas 16, Kentucky 13, that game in overtime. Texas only 179 yards of offense in this game. The offense from Texas this year has been one of the biggest flops in SEC play so far. They made a goal line stand in overtime, and they kicked a field goal to win the game. And, defensively, they did just fine in this game. Their defense has not been a problem for them all season. But, I don't really think this says as much about Kentucky as it does Texas just not being what all of us thought they were.
Yeah, I think so, too. I mean, even though it was a close game, I mean, I'm still not threatened by Kentucky. I know most Tennessee fans aren't, considering the history between the 2 schools. But I mean, props to them though for making it an overtime game and actually being competitive here, Texas. I mean, I know they've underperformed a lot this season, but I mean, you're still talking about you're still talking about a ranked opponent, and like it's not like they don't have talent on their team. So I mean, but Kentucky though, I mean, if you look at like their stats and everything going on, I mean, there's not much to really see there.
Yeah. We'll get into that later in
Yeah.
the show, but yeah, it's not good.
No.
Still not good, even though they kept this game close. Moving on down, Oklahoma 26, South Carolina 7. That game in Columbia. Oklahoma, who has not run the ball well most of the season, actually had a pretty decent day on the ground. Torrey Blaylock, their starting running back, goes for 101 yards in this game. They really just got up and stayed up in this game. It felt like they led, I think, by 14 early, and then South Carolina scored that touchdown. But Carolina just not able to do much in this game offensively. 6 sacks for the Sooners, who we know are very good on the defensive end. And the boos were just raining down all game on South Carolina, it felt like. So nice win for Oklahoma. They're not really beating a good SEC team yet, I don't feel like. And I believe their schedule is going to get tougher as we progress into the season. But, man, South Carolina, again, we mentioned it earlier, this could be a time where you look at them and say they could be in the mix for a coaching search here soon if Beamer does not turn things around quickly, which he has actually done in the past, as recently as last season, but it doesn't look good. Let's just call it like that.
It's just like South Carolina is just so wishy-washy. At times that they seem like they're a really good team, seems like they're a top 5 caliber team under Shane Beamer, but then like they underperform at times. And I mean, it seems like their season's falling apart right now. I mean, 3-4, 1-4 in the SEC. Lenore Sellers still isn't picking it up. I'm seeing right here that Mateer, I mean, he only threw for 150 yards. So I'm assuming he's still trying to fully recover from his injury. But I mean, we've seen it as Tennessee fans. I mean, it would be Tennessee fans' luck for John Mateer to have the game of the entire season against Tennessee. But we'll have to wait and see how he ends up doing with that. But yeah, Oklahoma's defense is scary. I think they're still number 1 in total defense. I could be mistaken, but I mean, 8 sacks this game. I know they had like 10 or 11 at one other game earlier in the year. That's going to be quite a problem, especially after seeing like what Alabama was able to do last week, even though Alabama has a significantly worse defense than Oklahoma, in my opinion. And like their pass rush is not nearly as good, but so that's going to be something to monitor in the next couple of weeks.
Last one to mention here, although I guess Auburn did beat Missouri 23-17 in overtime, but that game is not on the schedule for either of those teams. I think Mizzou's fine. Auburn is just not good. They need a new coach in the worst possible way. But LSU loses to Vanderbilt 31-24. Vanderbilt was favored in this game. Doors go for 239 on the ground. They did not trail after the second quarter of this game. And Vandy, that's a legit win for Vandy. We'll just call it like it is. I think LSU is a decent SEC football team. I don't think they're phenomenal, but I do at least think they're decent this season. But man, the offense has been an incredible disappointment at LSU this year. Their defense is much better, but it's just like one side of the ball has to work while the other is just terrible every single year for them. I don't know what that's all about. And you got to figure it's getting a little bit warmer down there for Brian Kelly. Not that he needs it with that Louisiana heat, but it is getting pretty warm down there. But Vanderbilt, I think, is legit. And I don't think it's unfair to say that they are one of the 2 toughest games left on Tennessee's schedule this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy the year that Vanderbilt's been able to pull together. I mean, they only have 1 loss on the year, and I mean the final score doesn't even tell the whole tale of that Alabama game, because if you were keeping up with it throughout the game, I mean, Vanderbilt was competitive for the most part, and then Alabama started pulling away towards the end. But yeah, I mean, Vanderbilt, I'm definitely a lot less confident in the game against Vanderbilt this year than I was heading into this season. I mean, it's rare that you ever see Vanderbilt start off to such a hot start, and winning against a top 10 team in LSU, and now they're a top 10 team. They're gonna be a problem. And honestly, like, I don't know what to think anymore about this Alabama game. Like, I mentioned it last week or last Saturday after the game. I mean, there very well could be a situation where Tennessee finishes 7-5 this year. And I know that's not what people want to hear, but I mean, Vanderbilt is a pretty good team.